glad to have you here. So I want to believe if you are here, you are either a freehander who wants to transition to pattern drafting or a starter who wants to learn how to sew using the pattern drafting method, or a pattern drafter who wants to improve his or her skill in pattern drafting. So you are welcome, everyone. You are in the right place. This is Classic by Mavi Online Fashion Academy. In the academy, we teach fashion in the simplest way for you to understand. So in today's class, we'll be learning what pattern drafting is, the introductory aspect, the theoretic aspect of pattern drafting. So without wasting time, let's start today's class. I hope you are with your book and your pen, because I am with mine. I'm with my notebook and with my pen. So you need to get your notebook and pen. I'll be defining, I'll just be facilitating the class. So you just make sure you take your notes, right? So let's just start. We'll start by defining pattern drafting. So what is pattern drafting? Pattern drafting is where pattern pieces are drawn on paper according to measurements, which becomes the basis for designers to create garments. So I hope you have gotten that definition. Let's now proceed to the importance of pattern drafting. The importance of pattern drafting cannot be overemphasized. They are numerous. They are in fact too numerous to mention, but I'll mention just a few for the sake of this class, okay? The number one importance I want to talk about is the ease of interpreting designs. Pattern drafting helps you to interpret designs with ease. There is no design on earth that they will give to a good pattern drafter, not the one that just taught herself on YouTube, or not the one that is just drawing on paper and calling it pattern drafting. The real pattern drafter. There is no design on earth that the real pattern drafter cannot interpret or cannot have an idea of how it was made. Yes, that is how good pattern drafting is. Number two, patterns are already cut to size. There is this precision and there is this accuracy in pattern drafting. So I always say pattern drafting is more accurate than freehand. Freehand, there is a lot of guesswork in freehand. But for pattern drafting, it is precision. In fact, when you want to make a dress for someone and the person brings a very expensive fabric, if you're a pattern drafter, you will not be scared of putting your scissors in that fabric, because you are very sure of the pattern you have drafted. It's just to transfer the patterns to the fabric. So it boosts your self-confidence. Okay, that's another importance. So it boosts your self-confidence because you now trust yourself more. Okay, you now trust yourself more. You are now sure of the accuracy of what you're about to do. Another importance, so in a nutshell, I've mentioned three. First, I talked about style design interpretation. Then number two, I talked about being precise, okay, patterns being already cut to size. Then number three, I talked about boosting your self-confidence because you are sure of what you are doing as a pattern drafter. Okay, so number four, the amount of fabric needed is on the pattern. That means it will eliminate wastage. Okay, in other words, pattern drafting eliminates wastage. You will not see wastage in pattern drafting. When you can draft patterns, after drafting your patterns, even half yard of a fabric can be used to make a corset top. You'll be shocked in that. You can use half yard of fabric to make a corset top because the patterns are precise. All you need to do is to place those patterns you've already drafted on the fabric in different areas and add your seam allowances, and that's all. So the fifth one we want to talk about is the fact that step-by-step instructions are provided in pattern drafting, and that also eliminates guesswork. Like in freehand, I was a freehander before I transitioned to pattern drafting. In freehand, when I was taught freehand, when I was way younger though, I was quite young. So when I was taught pattern drafting, when I was taught freehand, if you want to draft a armhole in freehand, they will tell you, okay, take 8. oh, the person is tall and huge, just take 9. So it's something like that we call guesswork. You won't see that in pattern drafting. In pattern drafting, there are rules and regulations. There are step-by-step instructions that you must follow. Okay, so the 6th point I want to mention is the fact that the pattern can be used again. Okay, that simply means in another way, pattern drafting can also increase speed. Okay, there's this general notion that pattern drafting wastes your time. It's a waste of time. Let me just place my paper, let me just place my fabric and start cutting. What's the essence of cutting on a paper again, wasting all my time before transferring to fabric? Yes, there are times it consumes time. Pattern drafting can consume your time, but there are times it will save your time. Yes, there are still times pattern drafting will save your time. So despite the fact that I do say pattern drafting takes more of your time, it is only when you want to draft the pattern afresh all the time, that is when it consumes your time. But note that pattern drafting can save your time drastically, in that a pattern that you used today can be used tomorrow. If you draft a pattern today for yourself, you want to make a specific style, you have drafted your basic bodies, your block, your basic bodies, your basic skirts or basic pants blocks, you have them. Whenever you want to make an outfit for yourself, man, you don't need the stress of armhole measurements, the stress of shoulder to width, the stress of no. You just bring that block and trace out the style you want. Off you go. Now I've mentioned yourself, you can also do this for clients. There are repeat clients. You have clients that always patronize you. Draft their basic blocks once and for all. Bodies, skirts, pants, back and front, and sleeve. Draft them and keep them safely. Whenever that person brings a fabric, whenever that person comes for another style, you just bring it out, transfer to another paper to create the new style. That's all you need. You don't need to stress yourself. But I will advise you repeatedly take the measurements just to do a few necessary adjustments, because people's bodies are not always the same. There are times you measure today, tomorrow you come, you have changed a little, especially for we women. We change a lot due to certain things happening in our body. It might be as a result of childbirth. It might be as a result of just you are relaxed, you have gained weight. So ensure to measure at all times, but keep the basic blocks. Whenever these persons come, all you need to do is to check the new measurements, compare with the pattern you already have. If there is any difference, you just make the adjustments, and that's all. So that's it for the importance of pattern drafting. The process involved in pattern drafting are: number 1, the measurements. You take your measurements, very important. That's the number 1 process. Number 2 process is the pattern drawing or the drafting process, okay, of a particular pattern. The number 3 process is the pattern set creation. For instance, if you are making this dress and you are drafting the basic bodies, my basic bodies, that is pattern drawing or drafting. You are drafting my basic skirts, you are drafting or drawing. Now, by the time you want to impute these drapes I have, okay, or you are drafting the basic sleeve, that is still drafting or drawing. But by the time you want to change the basic sleeve to this type of sleeve, imputing the ruffles and the bodies to this type of bodies also, in that case you are creating the pattern sets. Okay, I hope the process is clear. So after the pattern set creation, you now transfer to your fabric, and that is all involved in the process. It's a very easy and sweet process. I'll take you along the process till we get to pattern creation. Okay, in pattern creation, yes, in our bustier drafting and our corset drafting, that is pattern creation. Okay, I'll teach you the basics, which is pattern drafting: basic bodies, basic skirts, and basic pants. Then the pattern set creation is your bustier and your corset. It's more than this. Whenever, just like I've explained, whenever you want to now change the basic bodice to another style, you are creating a pattern set. Okay, let's now go to the last topic for today, which has to do with pattern terminologies, because in the process of our learning, I'll be making use of these terms. So you need to know the terms. So terms used in pattern drafting. Number one, apex. Any sharp point of a dress is the apex of the dress. Okay, for example, your darts. The sharp point of your darts is your apex. Okay, let me just sketch that somewhere and show you. So let's assume this is a dart. I hope you can see. Let's assume this is a dart and this is your apex. Okay, so this is the apex of your dart, the highest point. That's apex. Okay, so having shown you what apex is, let's move on to Armscy. Have you heard of Armscy before? Okay, yeah, that's how it is spelled. Armscy, the armhole, your armhole measurements. That is the Armscy, the armhole measurements from your shoulder to this point. This is your Armscy. That's your Armscy. Okay. Next is basting. B-A-S-T-I-N-G. Basting. Basting has to do with temporary stitching. Okay. Temporary stitches, so to say. In other words, you can call it tacking. Tacking, but this is temporary. There are times you tack to stay. Okay, you just, for example, the hem line of a pant, you just want it to be tacked and that's the end. You are finished sewing. But basting is quite different from that. For basting, it is not permanent. You tack and then you remove the stitches later. Okay, so that is what's called basting. Another term we want to talk about is bias. We have talked about, this is the fifth one we're talking about, okay? The purpose of this class, we might just take 12. There are more than 12, but we can just take 12. Okay, so the next is bias. Bias is diagonal direction of a fabric between the warp and the weft threads. Okay, the diagonal direction of a fabric. Let me give an example. Let me try and get a paper. Okay, let's work with this. For example, this is a fabric. This is your bias. Okay, we are folded on a bias format now. So this is what we call a bias. Have you seen? This is a bias. So I hope you understand that. So next is blending and contouring. This is the process of smoothing and shaping lines to create a smooth transition from one point to another. Please take note of blending and contouring. We'll be making use of it by the time we want to draft our bustier and our corset. So number 7, blocks. Blocks. Pattern making blocks generally refers to the individual pieces that together creates a sloper. Blocks do not contain seam allowances. Please note, hems or facings. Please take note of this, very important. Okay, and rewind and rewatch. Whatever you don't understand, ask questions. So I mentioned this earlier before. Blocks are the original patterns. Okay, the basic, the blocks from which you'll be creating other styles. Okay, so take note of that. Then number 8, bust point. Bust point is the furthest protruding point of the bust. The furthest protruding point of the bust. Okay, that's your bust point. This is the bust point. Okay, so during the process of drafting, I'll be using these words. And now that you already know them, it will be easier for you to follow. Number 9, we'll be talking about darts. A dart is a wedge of fabric that is pinched out of a garment to allow shaping or to remove excess. Please take note of that definition, very important. Dart intake is the distance between dart legs measured as a seam line. Dress form is used to assist in the making of a dress. is? Is the difference between body measurements and garment measurements. Also defined as the amount of space that allows for comfort. Let me cite an example. You can do a recap and read what I just, and listen to what I just said. But let me take example of ease. This dress, the upper part has much ease, but this lower part doesn't have ease. Look at how tight it is. Ease is that little inch you put on your pattern, okay, while drafting, that will allow for comfort. Can you see? But this is exactly on my body. This is because it's been long I made this dress. There was ease, but now that I've added weight, the ease has gone. There's no longer ease. So the ease is that little space that allows for comfort. Okay, so during your drafting, you add ease to your patterns, but you don't add seam allowances to your patterns while drafting. It's until you transfer to your fabric, the process of transferring to fabric, that you now add allowances. But for ease, you must add it to your pattern while drafting. Okay, so how many have we mentioned now? I think we have taken up to 10. 11, we talk about trueing. Trueing. That is true in. Trueing is the checking that the seam on a pattern are blended nicely and that the two adjoining seams are of the same length, or they are incorrect. If they are not of the same length, then you make your necessary adjustments. Okay, so in pattern drafting, you also do trueing. So the trueing, like I just explained, let me break it down by further explaining. So trueing has to do with, while you are drafting now, if you want to do trueing, after you measure, maybe your shoulder to your front half length is 17. After measuring that 17, trueing simply means after drafting, you check again. Did I actually use 17 for my front half length? You check. Then your armhole is 8.5, is 7.5. Did I actually use that? You check. Then you're supposed to slope your shoulder by 1.5 in front. Did I do that? You check. So to check for the accuracy of what you have done, and if there is any mistake, you correct yourself. So that is called trueing. Okay, the last but not the least is a toile. In other words, sample. Toile, Toile, in brackets, sample. A toile is an early prototype of a garment made in an inexpensive fabric. Okay, that simply means, like this dress I'm wearing, you have seen it, maybe you like it and you want to do something like this. How do you do it? You feel, oh, I have a fabric that can actually suit this, but the fabric is expensive. I don't really know how to make this dress. I just want to try. Okay, I think she did slash and spread in the arms. Okay, I think she did a little bit of slash and spread too in the bust area. Okay, I think you are guessing, you are not sure now. So now you want to make this style. What I'll advise you to do is to get an inexpensive fabric. It can be a muslin, a calico, any fabric that is inexpensive, that you know that if you spoil it, it will not pain you, so to say. You get that kind of fabric and try what you have imagined that I did to bring out this dress. So when you sew it and you see that the thing comes out very well, you now use your expensive fabric and make it the same way. So that dress you made now from the inexpensive fabric is what we call a toile. So from time to time you hear me saying, make a toile of this, make a toile of that, so you know what I mean. So that's all we'll take for fashion terminology and the theoretic aspect of pattern drafting. So in our next class, we'll be starting with the pattern drafting process, which involves number 1, the body measurements. So I'll be showing you how to take accurate body measurements for bodies, for skirts, for sleeve, and for pants in our next video. Thanks for being in class today. Hope to see you in our next class.